Alkinani, who is an Iraq-focused Middle East analyst and a non-resident fellow at the Arab Center from Washington, D.C., joins us live in Doha. Thank you for joining the program. So, if it does come to it, what will dissolving the parliament actually achieve?
Well, we also have to look in the overarching picture here, what led to this. We're currently witnessing the crisis being transformed from a political one to a constitutional one, making it more complex and drastic to the existential legitimacy of the post-2003 political system in Iraq. The reason why the Iraqi Federal Supreme Court is meeting to discuss the dissolvement of parliament and, of course, considering early elections is due to the initial demand by the Sadrist movement to do so, as it failed to form a cabinet through the parliament and is now finding ways to pressure its rivals, the coordination framework, beyond the parliament, since their resignation from parliament wasn't enough of a pressure to the political class, which evidently used to work even before the early elections in October 2021.
Okay, just to interrupt you there. So if these early elections are called, what is going to be different this time? Because the last time round, we did end up with Sadr winning the majority of the votes, but he was unable to get enough support to form a government, which is how things ended up last year. So who's to say we don't end up in the same situation again?
Well, of course, that is at the core argument from the protest movement, right? You have the same traditional political parties participating under the same institutional, constitutional and political umbrella, although there has been a minor electoral amendment in the lead up to the early elections in October 2021. However, the coordination framework, based on many evidences, believes that it will even further have a weaker or decreasing electoral performance like it did in the last elections. There is also speculations that there will be more emerging political parties from the protest movements that will participate in an upcoming early elections, given that there was a major boycott camp amongst the protest movement. And there might be a speculation, especially from the coordination framework, or a fear that many of those emerging parties might find a temporary common interest or agreement to build alliances just to further push away the coordination framework, which leadership, or most of its leadership, is affiliated with the pro-Iran camp in Iraq, which is also accused of intimidating, attacking and kidnapping the protesters from the October 2019 protest movement. That is from the political aspect of it. But from the constitutional aspect of it, now, apart from the court's meeting to discuss the case to dissolve the parliament, there is also another scheduled meeting in late September for the court regarding the constitutionality of the speaker's acceptance to the resignation of the Sadrist MPs that took place a few weeks ago. However, this meeting would also be automatically cancelled if the court is to in any way call for the current parliament's dissolvement.
Just to interrupt you again, Zeidon, this is quite a complicated thing to explain the politics in Iraq. One thing I do understand is that Muqtada Sadr has been invited to some of the meetings that have been held recently to discuss the future of the political system, but he has not attended any of those meetings. What do we read into that?
Well, it makes it even more difficult for the Iraqi caretaker Prime Minister Mustafa the Sadrist absence from these negotiations or initiatives of dialogue has been very negatively impacted on Kadhimi's attempts to gather all the rivals. Even representatives from the coordination framework have continuously tried to invite Muqtada Sadr or representatives from the Sadrist movement. But again, the Sadrist movement is fighting a political battle for a national majority government against the idea of a consensus government that the coordination framework and its allies have been pushing back for months. Putting him back on the negotiation tables through an initiative by the Prime Minister does not seem to be something that he is looking forward to do, at least in the short term, because that's putting him back on the negotiation tables with the same disagreements that's been pushing them from forming this government. So
you think he's playing a tough game
now is not in the court of the political parties. He's playing a tough game, and there's the court's constitutional ability to dissolve this that is also facing a dead end.
Unfortunately,